All right, I talked to the guy, he's going all in. So we just want to take a lot of frickin' pictures of everything so that we can remember where everything goes. All right, bud, let's have at her. Oh, those are continuous pieces of wire. Interesting, interesting. That's a pro gamer move. I like doing stuff like that. Not that it makes getting this board out any easier. Now these two pink wires likely doesn't matter which order they go back in, but the length is going to tell us a clue. Come on. These posts are taking a fair amount of heat. Now the resistors over on this side here, well, they're all in relative order, so it's going to be pretty easy to figure out which one goes where after. Oh, are they wrapped around the post? Do you mean they actually secured these nice? Oh boy, I didn't see that coming. All those wires were just kind of schlepped in there. Let's see, is it easier to take it off the tube socket? Maybe. Yeah, because they are hooked on there, so. Oh yeah, I could tell right away. The solder's starting to flake in ways that's consistent with lead free. Okay, how are we doing here? We got these under wires that are holding us, and we have these. Got the wires on this tube socket here holding us back. So let's just get a record of that. Oi, this one's tight. Get off there. Got to be careful if you put too much heat on some of the wires, they you can damage the insulation. So we got a couple more connecting back here. So basically the easiest way to do this now is to pull these gray wires off. They're not looped, so that's easy. Can we move this now? Oh, here we go. Should be able to flip this up and over now. Some way, somehow. All right. It's not the most elegant, but it's just enough so that we can access the arse end of this thing. Our overhead filming angle is not ideal for this project, so we're gonna have to use Potato Cam, Mr. Potato Cam over here. And now, we pretty much go ham, which is good because some of these joints do look sketchy. So that's basically the process now. We just go through and redo every solder joint, being careful not to let components fall out. And it's starting to stink something fierce, so unfortunately, we're gonna have to utilize ye old circulation fan, keep the stink out of our face, in hopes that we don't breathe in so much of it. Now be careful, because you got like some components that are close together, like this is a capacitor. I'm gonna do one of the joints, and then I'm gonna let that cool down. I'm gonna move on to a joint somewhere else, and then I'll come back and redo that joint, because if you get both joints soft at the same time, you could dismount the component. Now these big lugs, these lugs take a lot of heat. We're only doing half of them, but that's gonna be good enough. Fortunately, this isn't much thinking, but quite focus, because you have to pay attention to the joints you've done already, which is easier on a bigger, bulkier board like this, but will get progressively more complicated as you move on to boards with more smaller components. Oh, we lost a lug. Yeah, those lugs will just fall out. That's the reason why I'm only fusing half of them. Like, you don't have to be as thorough as new. It's basically a case of refusing the solder joints. All right, there aren't that many joints on this board, so I think I got them all. Yeah, she looks good now. Took longer to take it apart and put it back together than it did to do the actual work. We just have to reseat that lug that fell out. And it came out right here. We will get this clip to hold it into place, or can we? All right, three-handed maneuver. Hold the lug into place. Negotiate solder into place. Oh, we're not gonna be able to see on the camera. On fusion. Yes. All right, that power board is done now. So we can get most of these wires back into place, but there's some that we might need to keep loose so we can get the other boards out. Like these blue wires and these red and white wires here. That looks to be about it. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna get this mostly put back together. Now really, I should probably be dolloping some Loctite into these holes. Not that much. Be easier to use, Loctite. All right, that's one board back into place. Now, getting some of the core functions reconnected here. That requires us loading up our photos. These blue wires go under here and up to there. But of course, we have to clean those holes first. We have to clean all these holes. Yep, that's gonna take us a while. Okay, these blue wires with no particular bias connect to these poles here. Put some fresh solder on that. Sam's now got the blues. I need to load these photos onto the computer so I can see them easier. Okay, leaving these disconnected, but these pink wires, we can tend to these pink wires next step, and the pink wires go over these ones. All right, so once pink, it goes here. Freshen it up. On the other pink coil, goes all the way up here. I'm in the zone and I'm forgetting to redo my camera angle so you guys can see better, but that's kind of, you know, I don't completely want to be here all day. Unfortunately, filming a task often means it takes twice as long. Saw that coming. Fresh solder pops right out. Yeah, it didn't go back in as pretty as I would have liked, but it's gonna work. All right, these guys down here, they connect to the transformer so they can go back into place. So that transformer's not coming out. Tack attack. Tack attack. All right, and another three-handed maneuver. We're holding. Ugh, I have not enough hands, sir. You know, you gotta be nimble with the fingers. Holding the wire with these fingers, touching up the solder with these ones. Yeah, the ladies dig me. Now what's that connection there? That connection there is this red wire. Yeah, that can go back into place. In fact, both these black and white wires that go to the tube can go back into place now. Bow wow. Clean up these tube holes. Giant gobs of solder they have on them. Let's get them back into place. Black goes there. The red ones goes up there. While we're on the topic of this particular tube, we will freshen up the solder on the other two wires. All right, that's good. When done, we have this other red wire coming in from over yonder. It should go under the purple wires and onto this peg here, which is turned the wrong way. You'd think they would make the effort to point these in the right direction so you can properly seat a wire into them. And we infuse it with some fresh solder. There we go. So the rest of these wires I'm leaving disconnected because I'm going to need the slack to get one of the other boards out. We'll move on to reconnecting the tube circuits here, in which we start off by cleaning the holes. There's so much solder on these sockets, it takes several attempts to suck it up. All right, finally, after 1,000 years, we know the caramel secret. I have to reconnect all these resistors, sir. Just make sure their ends aren't gobbed up. Now, a little bit easier to splice these guys on there when the board was loose. Gotta negotiate these little hooks into place, sir. Like these ones are a touch short, so it's tricky. My hands are totally getting in the way, so sorry. Unfortunately, your front row seat is a little bit too close to the action. All right, those resistors are all in place now. They'll be easy to tack down. Just freaking have at her, bud. Yeah, now we move right on to reconnecting these gray wires, which is going to be a multi-fingered operation also. Fashion it into the shape of a hook. Hook it on, crimp it on. Rinse and repeat. I'm burning, but you gotta hold it. You gotta hold it. All right, all the important connections are back into place. The rest of the connections can wait till we do the rest of the board. It's just a case of going through and touching up all the rest of the solder joints that are on this side. So like these peggies here, reglaze their mushroom tops, and then all the wires connected to the tube sockets, which is 3 additional wires per tube. That yellow wire coming in is from the output transformer. All right, board check, tube sockets check, wires reconnected check. We're finally done the power board. I think that took about an hour. Oh, before I forget, there's one very important modification I need to make sure I do to this. Need to get rid of this right here. Yeah, because we've definitely added the peanut butter to this. Oh, it'd be nice to get that sticker off all in one fell swoop, but that didn't happen. All right, so we're done on this side. Now we have to move into over here. And I don't know if you can see it, but we have all sorts of connectors to unplug here. That are all kind of pretty obvious where they're gonna go, so I don't feel the need to take photos of it. You might want to if you're doing something like this. I have the natural ability to be able to keep track of these kinds of things. For the most part, with a little bit of screw action, this guy should come right out. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, we got some subtle hang-ups, but for the most part, there it is. Now, those red and black wires here are permanently affixed to a tube down here, but that's okay. This is about all the access we're actually gonna need. Now, the joints are getting smaller and trickier, and will take more effort to focus to keep track of. So you kind of wanna do like a printer pattern. Start from one side and move your way over. And also bearing in mind that if you have a component with like 2 or 3 connections, don't heat them all up at once. Rotate between components so you don't accidentally drop it out. Also, when stuff gets close together, make sure you don't accidentally bridge 2 connections together. At least the small solder joints go real fast. Oh, and if I never mentioned it, this is a 35-watt soldering iron. Do not use anything much hotter than 45 watts, and even at that, you need to be good and quick with your iron. Too hot of an iron, you're just gonna burn out components. Some components you kind of have to thumb them back up into position, like these 2 little guys right here. On one of our first ICs, this little 8-pack right here. This is where you don't want too hot of an iron and you don't want to spend too much time on there. Fortunately, it's hard to knock them out because, you know, they have 8 legs supporting them. It's actually difficult to remove an IC if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, that went smoothly. These wires up here, hopefully they don't fall out. This kind of thing is actually kind of zen and meditative, you know? It requires a passive kind of focus where you just have to keep track of what you've done already, but you don't really have to think too much about what you're doing. So you can actually just relax and hammer out the work, and before you know it, you're done. Just remember, pay attention to make sure you don't bridge contacts. You don't want to find out the hard way when you fire it up that you screwed up, right? Home stretch. Okay, that's the preamp board done. Now I'm just gonna take a moment to look over, make sure I didn't miss anything, make sure I didn't bridge any connections, and we're good. Like, it's not that pretty. It's not like when you do a fresh solder job with fresh components. It's gonna look a bit rough mixing all this different solders together, but you know it's good. So we could just go and plop this back into place, I think. Gotta fish these wires through here. All right, all right, all right. Now, before we screw it down, I need to look in underneath here. The screws are this way. It looks like I can unscrew it from the back here. There's only a few wires connected on this end, it looks like it, so it should pivot out. Yeah, it looks like we get at it from this side here. Now I gotta pivot the preamp board back out, and then we should be able to finagle on this, disconnect the reverb lines. All right, without having to disconnect any other wires, we should be able to get in here well enough to do these joints. Just gotta be careful, because some of these wires are gonna be under tension, so we could accidentally end up having them pop out on us. We'll go get these guys up in here first. All right, I got done that hard to reach area. Just wanna flip over to make sure none of these components came out. Yeah, like we got a couple big resistors here that seem like they could use. Oh, looks like we're gonna be good. Let's flip her back over and continue. Let's keep this train rolling. We got some tiny, delicate connections here. Oh, they're out of frame, unfortunately. This is where stuff's starting to get tricky. We're on another IC here with very small joints. I bridged a connection. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be. It looks like it is, but I should double check. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. That's half this board down. Unfortunately, the other half here has even more. Those are false points. There's nothing there. We've got a tiny little switch here. That's going to be a tricky one. Oh, that was close. It's tricky because they're so close together. Okay. Got it. Man, this video is gonna be so boring to edit. So yeah, every now and then I come across a sketchy looking joint, you know? When you're looking this closely at every single one, you notice. Like we have another IC here. No, it's just a bank of parts. Yeah, we got a lot of tight close together joints here. Woof, woof. Every now and then you feel a component slip. You gotta reach your finger around, press up on it while you're soldering it, and burn your finger just a little bit. It's part of the job. Hoi, 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 hoi. Oh, that joint looks bad. These big bulky connectors are a breath of fresh air right now. Another one of these tiny little switches. Oh, there we go. I got all those, I got all those. I think I got all the small connections. Yeah, yeah. Now we'll just do these bulkers here. Yep, we have what look like sketchy joints on these jacks for sure. All right, that is the hardest board done. Yeah. Give these barrels a little polish here and a light dusting. Yeah, boy, there's definitely lead in here now. Wow, these stickers are kind of stuck. You know what? Good enough. We should probably get in the bottom of that chassis with the vacuum first. There's crap's not coming out of there anytime soon, but I think you know it. I think we can put this back into place maybe. And you're not gonna be able to see me do this, but I'm gonna go in there and touch up the wire posts once I find my tool that I need. Oh, it's hiding. So best I can tell, this amp has solid state reverb buffer, FX send buffer, and tremolo. Because I guess, what's the point making those things? Tube. You know, you're only paying a lot of money for a name, right? So where does it say this thing was made? Built by Vox Manufacturing, China. Yeah, okay, okay. Not the Vox of old. All right, that board's Dunsky. Now there's some larger solder connections I'm not too worried about, like the mains wires. I don't think those are going anywhere. So we can get this all put back together now. We put the jacks through their respective holes. That should line up our screw holes for us, almost. Because again, we want to Loctite these screws. Now let's get Loctite everywhere but on the screw. Now this preamp board, well, that's ready to go back in, isn't it? Pretty sure. Und against with the Loctite. No, don't magnetically pick up all the screws at once, bud. All right. Let's reconnect these. Oh, well, no, actually, they're going to be in the way because we got to do this board first. And I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see it. The camera can't get it at this angle, and where it's sitting here is ideal. So either way, all the pots here are on a front board. It's very simple. It's just basically the connections for the pots themselves and the switches. So we don't even have to take it out. It's literally the simplest board, which is good because we can't take it out. It does look like it has a couple components that you're gonna have to watch out for because if you accidentally push them through, good luck getting them. Okay, multi-pin connector. Ugh, I bridged a connection and another one. Clean up in aisle 4. Now one wild card is this pupper right here. I'm gonna connect these back on. Now this guy is right sketched out. They need to come out. Shizzle. And they're not coming out alone. We have nuisance switches that have to come out with it. Look at this assembly here. Now, this internal connection has suffered no damage because it doesn't get used. But these ones seemed quite loose. Or was it these ones? Oh, this speaker jack is physically broken. Oof. Okay, fun times. Well, the speaker jack, that's still good. Let's tack her on there nice. This other jack, well, damn you tight ass ground wire. Let's get stuck on this ground wire. Oh boy, yeah, it's just gonna keep spinning. I'd really rather not have to take that out. Oh, we got 2 broken connections here actually. Well then, we gotta remove this jack. See that? The legs on this side sheared right off. They're under here. The rest of these connections look good, they're not going anywhere. So let's just fix that jack, which is quite tricky. I know the trick to doing it, but it's tricky. That's all I'm gonna say. So we have to do, which we totally can't do like this, with the jack securely secured to get it there. Put bead of solder like that. Yes. We have to get a leg. This is cuttings off like components, a resistor or something. Considering this is a speaker jack, larger wire would be better, but with that small of a connection, not too worried about it. That little piece should be able to pass that much current. Fortunately, we're melting parts of the jack here. Oh boy. So now we've added new legs onto this jack. It, not the most elegant solution, but it saves you having to replace the jack. Now it's just a case of getting it attached back on there. Fortunately, the important connections are the ones that aren't broken. All right, let's tack it up. Now if you're quick, you won't make those connections loose. Otherwise, that will fall off. There we go. Jack repaired. I gotta put all this crap back in there, which I won't be able to show you because of the angle. Oh, those jacks have washers. Make sure you put the washers back in. And of course, we're gonna do our trick where we glue them in there. And we only have one more of these left, so gotta wait till the other ones we ordered come in. All right, let's get these stupid things back into place. So what are we missing here, bud? I think I'm done completely soldering this pupper up. It's just a question of reconnecting all the wires now. All right. Let's get back under here. See if we can't get these wires back into place. As mentioned, these ones here, well, they just go in order. I do have pictures though. There's no rhyme or reason for these wires, eh? They couldn't put these things on straight. No, they couldn't put them on straight. That would make too much sense. Probably not the way this amp was intended to be wired. Like, I'm embarrassed by how sloppy these connections look. Okay, this one didn't turn out very well. It's sloppy as frig, but if I try any harder, it's gonna get worse. It's ugly, but it's a good connection. These other ones, we're just gonna do it the way, crappy ass way that they have it. Put a big, blimey blob of solder on the end of the post and just glob it together. Just put a big glob at the end of the post and just tack it on there. Just like that. Try to do better than that, it's just gonna blow up in your face. Right? Right. Still gotta connect these guys. Which they had tucked around the corner here. Okay. Am I forgetting anything? Other than there's a screw missing there. Did we find that screw? Yep, there it is. What was that, like 3-4 hours work? How long has my audio been dead? Why didn't you guys warn me? Now, one last issue he reports is when he flicks the standby, it pops his fuse. And that's an issue with inrush current, and I think I have an app for that. Seen here is the standby switch. Now, I'm going to do something called a soft standby mod. That entails taking a nice beefy high wattage 100K ohm resistor like this and attaching it to the contacts across the standby. Now, you know that they didn't put these wires through any holes, so as soon as I tack solder to these, they're going to try to come off. So we have to pre-shape this. Now let's see if we can do this without things falling apart everywhere. Well, I think it's asking a tall order. Let's just put some tension on it here. There, that should be plenty good enough for that side. The second side will be easier. All right, she's just kind of floating there. So we can get some solder on it. There we go. That's not going anywhere now. So the idea is, this is going to let current bleed past the standby. Now at 100K ohms, it's gonna be in such a low power state that the amp's effectively still gonna be in standby. However, because there is that little bit of current constantly flowing, it's gonna prevent inrush. And soft standby is actually a little trick if you wanna theoretically prolong the life of your tubes, as they won't get hit as hard when you take your amp out of standby. I've done it to my Marshall JCM 800. Hard to tell practically how well it works, but all right. This amp is all back together now. So now we have to make it so that I can turn it on. So let's go ahead and put some tubes into place. Our 12AX7s are hiding under this little plate here. The rest of our tubes pretty straightforward. Got this here. We should give this a squish. These tubes all look like they've been running hot. Okay, we're tubed up. Tubed up and lubed up. Yeah, so let's power her on now, bud. All right, here we go, buds. Wish me no explosions. She's pretty quiet now. I can't even tell that it's on. I think she works. And she's so quiet now too. She's making all sorts of hums before. Wonder what about the standby? Like with the standby off, you can maybe hear faint noise in there, but yeah, good to go. Well, after much tinkering and deliberation, you know, I really wish everything could be a success story, but not everything's a success story. I came close to figuring out a strategy where I replaced the strand of wire and I had it on here and I had the T-block on here, but I couldn't get it through. And you know, it's such a fine piece of wire, it couldn't take the abuse. And then I tried to see if I could get the old guts out of the ferrite core, the little tiny magnets, so that I could replace them, and I couldn't get it out. Then it slipped and flung across the shop somewhere, and I told Buddy ahead of time that most likely we're gonna be clipping this spring out. And he's okay with that. And we still have 2 springs in here, so that's still gonna provide some reverb. So we're just gonna have to go ahead and do that, because repairing this is, I'll admit I've learned something, and if I come across this again, I might be more prepared for a strategy to repair it, but it's not happening this day. So we gotta go ahead and remove this broken spring. That's what it comes down to. To do that, we're just gonna have to take out the other side too. And we gotta get that T out of there. We don't wanna leave stray crap hanging in here, or else it's just gonna cause problems. So we drill out. That's glue. Now, fortunately, if we do find a replacement spring, we can still put it back in. These things just kind of T-slot in there. So now I twist it, put it through the other side, push it through, and then this should pull right out. Oh wait, the rubber plug. Okay, we gotta push it through like this. There. Now the broken spring is out. Look at how fine that is. A tiny little piece of wire, so fragile. It's better this way anyway, because my fix might have just been fragile and broken again. So now let's put this guy back together, which is probably gonna be fun, getting these springs back into place. I might need a puller tool. Puller tool won't fit through that hole. Or a different puller tool. That's 1 spring. That's 2 spring. I only disconnected 3 of these springs, so a little slip. That's 3 springs. All right, this reverb tank should be serviceable again now. Oh, we have tuck sections for these wires. Let's get this panel back on. Now this is just some fine particle board, so watch your torque. I'm a surgeon with this electrical screwdriver. All right, bud, she's about as good as you get. We gotta put her together now. And that entails slipping this guy back in here. Trickiest part being finding these tiny little holes. This thing's been taken apart before. There's 2 holes here. Wonder which one's original. Oh yeah, okay, so the other one's on that side, so we'll be okay. There's no hole in the rear. All right, reverb tank's in. We got this baffle plate in here that's awfully dusty. Before we throw the chassis in, just gonna clean up on there a little bit. There's this heat baffle here. It's gonna be tricky to get out. I tried, so I'm just gonna jam up in there and, oh, look at that, man. That was due. That was due. Geez, you let too much dust build up in some areas of a tube amp. It might be a fire hazard. Oh yeah, bud. She's filth. She's pure filth. And of course, that blew dust everywhere. I should have done this first. Luckily, vacuuming is not exactly difficult. So let's slip in chassis de fromage then. And one annoying thing I noticed about the design of this amp, you can't really get at the tubes without taking the chassis out. I don't know how much I like that idea, but it is what it is, right? We didn't have a say in how it was designed. We're gonna have to flip this on its face. Let's put in the crystals while we're in here. And I know it's working. Make sure those reverbs are connected in here. Yup. Ah, where is the backboarding? Backboarding looks pretty clean inside, so not a problem. Get that on there. First, we'll go in from the under. These are reasonably tight, that's nice. Fine, I'll check the torque by hand. I feel like I should have applied some glue to these too, but oh, they go in there so tight I don't feel like I should be worried about it. However, I did find them loose. All right, now just the back plate. We have a couple different kinds of screws in here. There's a couple wood style screws. I gotta remember how I took this apart. Let's see, okay, the wood screws. The wood screws go in the bottom holes here. These screw into the wood, the rest of these screw into the chassis. Yeah, I'm not gonna bother gluing or Loctiting these screws because you need to be able to take them apart for servicing to get at those tubes. So I'm just gonna tell him, yo, make sure you go through this and tighten up the screws once in a while. Like, some people are not mechanically inclined and that's fine. But that's not exactly a high maintenance request, so. Taking this party downstairs, these number 6 screws should go in nicely here. Oh yeah, that's torque. This screw, does it have torque? Not enough. We're gonna replace this screw. They'll be all matched at least. Yeah, that should be good now. I think about one of the few things left to do. Just get these knobs in there. They mostly all go on tight. If you find your knobs are loose, sometimes just gently parting it with a screwdriver. Gently. If you're not gentle, you'll break off half the damn thing. And if you're doing a repair job, you either gotta go back in there or you're out some cash. This guy tried to solve the problem by putting masking tape on. All right, she's officially all back together. Let's test on her. Oh boy. Oh, let's try this reverb. Oh, the reverb's definitely more subtle now. But he says he doesn't really use it, so. Tremolo works. Yeah, that's definitely a vintage-ish tone. We're gonna bring it up a bit. Oh, that's about 1/4 volume. I think this amp definitely sounds better than when I got it. Like, definitely. Like, it sounds a lot more warmer and responsive. It seemed kind of like even more obnoxiously trebly. Like, I get why they call it top boost. It's kind of sparkly. Past 1/4 volume, it doesn't really get any louder. It just gets more dirtier. But I don't know, maybe that makes this kind of a decent amp. It's not so brutally loud, and then you know, if you crank her up a bit, you get more of that dirt. Well, we're gonna call this another success. An amp that was almost completely falling apart when I got it. And, you know, we've tuned her up a bit. And sometimes that's all it takes. These old guys, and this isn't even that old, but that's the problem. ROS compliant, lead free, no good for longevity. Not in something that you want to keep and it's probably going to outlive you. So every few years, every 10 or 20 years probably, at least 10, you can simply just go through it, redo the solder joints. Very carefully though. You have to be talented at soldering or else you're just going to mess things up. Even me. I may have made a few mistakes that I didn't admit to in this video, like accidentally bridging one little connection that grounded out the tremolo circuit and then it didn't want to work. But I sorted it out. But if you like this, well, I do things like this from time to time, so stay tuned and allow me to entertain you.